Yeah, he can tug on whatever rope he wants, Paul Blackburn. All right, bro. Yeah, dude, who the hell are you? Right? You're lucky you even are a major league pitcher at this point. Tugging on, I'll tug you, bro.
You want to tug him, bro?
Yeah, I want to tug him out of friggin' Yankee Stadium. That guy stinks. All right.
All right.
You clearly hated Stearns and
Yeah, they
Mendoza so
designated for
much.
him assignment. They said he was sucky, and they kicked him out.
Dude, he was. He's the reason why the Mets sucked in 2025, right?
Yeah, he's the reason.
Clay Holmes got pulled from that game, and who came in and now for the rest of the season, from that June point on, the Mets were the worst team in baseball. It was Paul Blackburn's fault, clearly.
Meet the Mets, fans. Voices rising up from the stands.
Welcome back to Meet the Mets fans. Happy New Year, Met fans. It is a brand new year, 2026. We are ready to go as New York Met fans. We are super excited, or are we? I'm not sure yet. We're going to get into it. Joining me here on the podcast today, my co-host, Justin. What's up, Justin? Happy New Year to you.
Stefan, what's up, man? Happy New Year. It's been a little bit for us. I was hoping our next recording, we were going to be having a big splash. It was going to be a instant reaction to some big signing or trade that David Stearns and the Mets made. Unfortunately, it's been, a typical MLB offseason. It's been slow, boring. People are complaining, and it looks like our team is not set at all so far.
You think so? I think it's set, man. We are ready
Yeah.
to rock. Let's go. 2026 World Series champion New York Mets with the squad we've got now, because it seems like we're not doing anything else.
Yeah, David Stearns is ready. He's ready for spring training to start up, right? I think that at this point, he says we're pretty much set up. We got our payroll where it's at. We got our players where we're at. We love our young kids, and we're ready to kind of dive into 2026 with what we got going on here.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But before we dive into it, I heard you got a super awesome Christmas present that
Oh,
you're
man.
wearing right now, and I think you need to talk about it.
This is the highlight of this show, right? Here it is right now, okay? So if you're not listening for the first 1 minute and 22 seconds into this, you're going to miss out on it. All right, so we got some swag going on over here.
Yeah, you got to stand up. You got to go a little lower.
So we got a Mets logo. I want to just show the back. Look at this thing. Check out the back of this. Can you see this?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Meet the
That's
Mets
legit.
fans.
Yeah, man. So if you're looking for any swag, right, from Meet the Met fans, okay, message us, right, directly. We don't have any inventory, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but you know what? That sounds cool. People are interested in that. Maybe we'll start up a store coming up soon.
Maybe. So Justin got that super awesome sweatshirt from his wife as a gift. My wife actually got me a quarter zip similar to that one, which I'll debut on the next episode. We'll check that one out. But just some super cool swag. I think our family members just supporting what we're trying to do here is pretty cool. So if it turns out to be nothing more than that, at least we got some cool swag.
Yeah, I love how my wife got this for me and has not listened to or has seen an episode at all, right? Which I understand. Could care less about baseball, and honestly, it's better off, right? We're looking for real fans over here in this pod. Looking for the real fans.
Hey, you've got the support coming to allow you to be in your attic right now doing this show with us, man.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Alrighty. Let's jump into it, Justin. So over the break that we've had from school, it seems like MLB has also been on a little bit of break, especially the Mets, but there have been some signings that have been made, and we kind of waited on this pod. We were going to do it yesterday, potentially. We waited until today, Sunday, to record because we wanted Okamoto to sign his free agent contract. We knew that the deadline would be 5 o'clock today, figuring we would hear what it is by Saturday, and we absolutely did. Guess what? Spoiler alert, Met fans, if you haven't heard, he did not sign with us.
Yeah. I know that for players and for agents, they probably don't like these deadlines, but I got to say, for fans and for organizations, having these deadlines that the Japanese players have is so much better. We know that pretty much a signing is going to be taking place at X date based on the deadline that these Japanese players had. And it really came to fruition pretty quickly, right? In terms of like, hey, their posting date is tomorrow. They signed the previous day. And it was really nice to say, we know that these guys are going to be signing at this point. We waited to record this podcast just because we knew that these guys were going to be off the market at this point. I know that agents probably will never be okay with it. Players probably aren't okay with it. But man, the Major League Baseball needs to figure out their offseason. Maybe we start the free agent process or the offseason a little bit later after the World Series, because it's so brutal what takes place here. But let's jump into these Japanese players, okay? All three of the big guys are off now the board here. Murakami signs with The Chicago White Sox, which I think was a huge surprise, right? That happened maybe a week ago now. 2 years for $34 million. Imai signed with Houston, 3 years, $63 million. And Okamoto signs with Toronto with 4 years and $60 million. Let's jump into all of these guys. Let's start with Murakami here, Stefan. What do you got going on?
Yeah, man. So Murakami was a guy that I looked at. I was really excited about. I thought that he could be the younger instant replacement for Pete Alonso, but it seems exactly like that's what David Stearns thought, is like, this guy's pretty much Pete Alonso, and if I don't want Pete Alonso around, why take a shot on an unknown, a guy that can turn out to be a complete bust? I still personally think David Stearns missed on this one. 2 years, $34 million is not bad. You throw money down the toilet for some of these guys, right? Like, and that would, let's say it was money down the toilet. It's still less money than you gave to Frankie Montas. So this is a guy that could be the Pete Alonso replacement power wise. He's been like, I'm not saying that he's going to be a 40 home run hitter. I'm not saying he's going to drive in 115 RBIs, but it's a 2-year deal, right? It's a 2-year deal that you could have gotten this guy on. Maybe he wanted nothing to do with New York City. Maybe, right? Maybe David Stearns was in it. We'll never really know this, but it seems like if you offered him a little bit more money, he would have taken the best contract offer that he got. And it seemed like there weren't a lot of offers out there, which is why he settled with the White Sox.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that major league teams were nervous with whatever his skill set is, right? Again, we're kind of going off of, obviously we saw him in the World Baseball Classic, right? He was electric there, but we're kind of going off of like reports on this guy is a major power hitter. We don't really know much about him, but major league teams were pretty scared off. If you're going to the Chicago White Sox, who legitimately has been the worst team in baseball for the last couple of years, on a 2-year, $34 million contract, there was not a lot of hype and not a lot of buzz around you, clearly. I think it's a smart contract for Murakami, to be honest with you. He's going 2 years, which means that he'll be a free agent again at his 27, 28 year season. And so he's going to be able to, if he does, it's a prove it contract. And if he is able to prove it, he's going to be able to sign a long-term contract because he'll still be a young kid. I'm sure he went into this saying he's going to get himself a long-term contract. For whatever the reasons are, it just didn't pan out. I know that some people were a little skeptical. I don't think the fastball, that statistic on him hitting fastballs was legit, but it was clear in terms of, they were nervous with him responding to major league pitching, right? And this guy, like you mentioned before, similar to Pete Alonso, I can't call him Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has proven it in the major leagues, right? This guy is not proven whatsoever, but he was half the price. Pete Alonso signed for $31 million a year. This guy signed for $17 million a year. So that is definitely a big difference in terms of average annual. Murakami, I think if he's legit, right? Mets missed out on a mark here because first base is a hole for us, right? We are starting a guy that's never played first base in their entire career right now in Polanco.
Yeah, he's a guy that I think David Stearns was just not very interested in, that building a team around that kind of player, a guy who's a power bat, that's a big strikeout guy. But I think he would have been splashy, and I don't think David Stearns cares about that. It at least would have brought buzz, right? Like, we don't know what he is. Could he be this next Pete Alonso type of player? And David Stearns doesn't care about that. Doesn't care about buzz. He doesn't care about any of this stuff. He wants what he believes is a good type of baseball player, a good type of hitter. And I don't think he thought Murakami was that.
I was gonna say, I feel like I would have been a little frustrated as a Met fan though if they signed Murakami, right? Because I would have said, if you value Murakami, why do you not value Pete Alonso then?
Well, you value
Right?
Murakami at $17 million. That's why. Like,
Yeah,
if Pete Alonso wanted to sign for $17 million, we'd give him 5 years too.
Yeah, I guess. I just personally think like, hey, if you're saying to yourself, like, I don't want those high strikeout guys, I don't really care about the potential 30 home run hitter. I value the athletic first baseman, guys that can put the ball in play. I would be annoyed, right, to be honest with you, if they said like, hey, this is our replacement for Pete Alonso, because they're very comparable in players. And again, I don't care about money, right? Steve Cohen prints money, okay? That is not my personal concern. And so I care about good baseball players and players that are going to make our team better. And so, would I have liked Murakami? I think the Mets need another offensive bat, which we'll get into later on in this pod. But it is what it is. They decided to not go that route.
Yeah. The next guy that ended up signing was a starting pitcher. Imai signs with Astros for 3 years, $63 million. I don't know. This is another one of those guys that I don't think the Mets were super interested in, right? Like it seemed like there was no interest the entire time you saw anything about Imai coming out in the media on X or whatever. The Mets were never really linked to this guy. It seemed like they weren't looking at adding another guy that needed to be in a 6-man rotation, probably because they were hoping to trade Kodai Senga. At this point, I don't know that that's happening, but for whatever reason, the Mets seemed never really to be linked to him, and not really an option for us.
Yeah, a reasonable contract. Again, 3 years, $63 million. It's the second highest average annual for a pitcher, only behind Yamamoto. Obviously, it's not the same length. Yamamoto got 10 plus years. Okay, he only got 3 years. He also has opt-outs after year 1 and year 2. And so, he can opt out after 2026 and 2027. It's another prove-it contract, clearly. Clearly, MLB teams are nervous with Imai, again, just like Murakami, because he was willing to sign a deal that was a short-term deal, a really short-term deal in terms of he can opt out after next year. If he has a big year, well, he'll get himself another big contract. He's only 27, so if he opt out next year, he's now 28 going into free agency again, and he's set himself up for a really nice big payday if he can prove it. Some of the reporting that I heard with Imai, again, we don't know much about it, just like he was one of the better pitchers, right, over in Japan. Some executives don't know if he's a true difference maker in terms of a starting pitcher. Some of them were saying, hey, he might be a 3-4 type of guy, but he's looking for really 1-2 in terms of money. Before he signed, there was a report that Houston and Atlanta actually have been scouting this kid since he was in high school. And so it wasn't a surprise when I saw Houston was the team that actually signed for him. He was, in terms of like reporting prior to that, Houston's name never popped up whatsoever, right, in terms of Imai. But, someone, dug in a little bit deeper and saw that it was really Houston and Atlanta that really had their eye on this kid for the last almost decade. And so it's not a huge surprise that Imai signed with Houston. It's another good contract, I think, that the Mets could have used. David Stearns loves the 3-year contracts, right? That is exactly right up his alley.
There's a 3-year contract that David Stearns didn't sign? What?
Again, Stearns going into it saying, we need someone that's more reliable or someone that's more proven in terms of starting pitching, because I have a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unprovenness in terms of my young kids. And so there's no reason to take $20 million and now spend it on another unproven starting pitcher, which I understand, right? You have Tong, you have Sproat, you have McLean that are coming up that are those young kids that are technically unproven at this point that can do just what Imai's doing and are not going to cost you $20 million this year.
No, yeah, I don't disagree with that. That's probably exactly what David Stearns is thinking. Is like, does this make my team actually better? I don't know. So why spend $20 million to do that? Because, and I'll get into it when I talk about my plan, I do think the starting rotation is a bunch of guys that he thinks can bounce back. And so we'll get a little bit. I'll save it. We'll get more into that in a little bit.
We call that a little teaser, guys. A little teaser. You got to wait till later in the episode to hear about that.
Stay tuned. The last thing I'll say on Imai is I think he found the loophole to these Japanese contracts, right? You sign a deal for how many ever years with an opt-out after the first year, and then the restrictions on the timeline and all this other stuff and the posting money that comes with this, they go out the window, right? So let's say he has a decent season here, he has a great season, opting out in that very next year, now you can sign with whoever you want with very limited restrictions, and I think the biggest restriction being time. Right, you can negotiate for longer. I think the pressure was on with some of these guys to sign. The reason we knew we would hear about a certain player the day prior is because the contract needs to be finalized by the deadline. Right, like the I's and the T's needed to be dotted and crossed by the 5 p.m. deadline that most of these guys had. And so that restriction of time, the pressure to sign by a certain deadline won't be there for him next year if he opts out of that contract.
Yeah, and again, like the way that posting system kind of works is it's like a percentage of the entire totality of the contract. And so, yeah, that's a great point. If Imai is saying like, or MLB teams are saying like, hey, there's no reason for us to be paying this posting fee plus the salary of a guy that we're not sure about. I think this is a great contract for Imai. Again, Murakami, same thing, 2 years, right? Not that long of a span. He can maybe get himself big money contract. Imai is looking for a big money contract. Yeah, so it's possible MLB teams were like, hey, we don't feel like paying the extra $20 million to your Japanese club when you'll be a free agent in X amount of years anyway. So It's possible.
Yep.
All right,
And
last
that,
one here.
yeah.
Yeah, Okamoto. I mentioned before, Okamoto signs with Toronto. 4 years, about $60 million. I saw maybe like a $3 million signing bonus. There is no opt-outs for Okamoto. So this is a true, legit 4-year contract that he signs with Toronto. This guy came in saying he could play first base, third base. I also saw that he's potentially a left fielder or can play a little bit of left field. And I think that's a great signing for Toronto in terms of flexibility. It's a guy that they can plug in into multiple positions. Obviously, he's not going to be playing first base with Vladdy over there in Toronto, but he is someone that can go around the diamond with third base, maybe left field, DH. You know, in terms of this player and his profile, it seems like a guy that David Stearns, I thought, would be connected to more than those other two guys. Someone that can kind of puts the ball in play, doesn't strike out a lot, has a lot of versatility in terms of a position player, but a guy that, once again, the Mets were never really connected to. All the reporting came out was that the Mets were out on Yakamoto.
Okamoto.
Akamoto. Yeah, Akamoto. Is that saying it? Yeah, and so, for whatever the reasons were, again, we're not scouting them. We're not looking at these guys. David Stearns flew over to Japan and looked at a bunch of these players. I believe he went over when it was the David Wright ceremony, when they retired his number. I think that's when Stearns was over in Japan. Again, we're not looking at these players. We don't know much about it. We're just hearing, oh, he's good over in the Japanese league. He must be good because of Otani and Yamamoto. And that's not just really the case here, right? We're just kind of relying, or we're just seeing the last two players who happen to be some of the best major league players now in baseball. And I think that's kind of what the allure is for a lot of these Japanese kids.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the thing to talk about here is the Toronto Blue Jays lineup has just gotten better, right? This is a team that went to the World Series last year, and they continue to add to their team to make themselves better. They've got a lineup with Springer, Vladdy, Santander, Okamoto in it now, Addison Barger, who's been a pretty solid player for them offensively. Andres Jimenez is their 9-hitter, right? Like this is a
Varsho,
team,
yeah.
Dalton Varsho, this team is a pretty stacked team offensively. They continue to add pitching. It seems like we're the team that is kind of left behind here, not adding a whole lot. And there have been a couple of other signings that I thought we missed out on. Like I think the next one to talk about is Ryan O'Hearn. That's a guy that's been part of my plan for a long time now. Ends up signing with Pittsburgh for 2 years, $29 million. Another one of those contracts that you look at and say, what? How are we not in on that? How are we not in on Ryan O'Hearn for 2 years, $29 million? A player with versatility, a player who can defensively be an upgrade over Pete Alonso at first base. That one just seemed like a miss for us.
Yeah, I'm with you on the O'Hearn one. It kind of fit the mold or exactly the needs that the Mets have right now, which is first base and outfield. Like legit offensively, the Mets need a first baseman and they need an outfielder. So Ryan O'Hearn fit both of those categories, and someone that could have, I don't want to say platoon, but it could have been, a rotation guy in terms of like the lineup. Like, hey, he plays first base today, he plays left field this day, plays right field this day, right? But, again, for whatever reason, Stearns was not interested in Ryan O'Hearn. The next guy that signed, Pete Fairbanks, he went to Miami, 1 year, $13 million. The Mets have spent a ton of money on their bullpen already. When you look at Devin Williams, you look at Luke Weaver, AJ Minter technically opted into that contract. That was another $11 million contract. So I don't think the Mets were ever looking to spend another big contract on another reliever. I think the Luke Weaver was their next big guy when they missed out on Diaz. And I'm not comparing Luke Weaver and Edwin Diaz at all. I'm saying in terms of like money spent on the bullpen. I don't think the Mets are going to be going after another $10+ million guy for this bullpen this year.
No, I agree. When you look at the money for him, it just felt like, yeah, why not? $13 million. Great move by the Marlins, who's another team that continues to make themselves better. And at this point, if I'm looking at our rosters next to each other on paper, I don't know. I think the Marlins might have a little bit better of a roster than us on paper, man.
I haven't looked at the Mets schedule, but I swear to God, if we play Miami again the last 3 games of the season, I'm going to be so pissed. Right? We can't.
I don't think we do. I think we did play Washington or something like that. I could look it up really quickly.
Right, give us the Mets.
I know for sure it's not the Marlins, because I remember when the schedules came out, I kind of looked at that and I was like, we can't end the season against the Marlins. And I don't think we are. I think we might be very early in the season playing the Marlins.
They're going to go, what do we play now? 13 games against the National League opponents. We're going to go like 4 and, I don't know, 9 against them, Miami. They are just a pain in the, right? Every single year for this team.
The old took us.
Our last major sign that we kind of identified since our last pod has been Zach Eflin. 1 year, $10 million. He went back to Baltimore. Again, someone I personally, I understand why they didn't go after him. He had a terrible year last year. Now, he did have back and knee issues last year. He was okay in 2023. His last good year was 2 years ago now. But that's a long time ago. And so, for Zach Eflin, that's not someone I think the Mets needed. The Mets have a bunch of Zach Eflins, right? Or guys that are comparable to Zach Eflin, right? When you're looking at Peterson, you're looking at, I think Senga is better than Zach Eflin. But you're looking at Holmes, you're looking at Peterson, you're looking at Mania, I think are just as good or if not better than Zach Eflin. And so I don't think that was a guy that the Mets were ever going to target. And I'm glad that that's not what we're looking for. We'll talk again a little bit about our starting pitching and what's going to happen there. But if the Mets are going to go after starting pitcher, it needs to be a top end or top of the arm rotation guy. It should not be another middling guy that can just, get us through 5 innings, right? We need someone that can get us a workhorse that's going to get us those 6-7 innings at this point.
Yeah, I think my immediate reaction to the Eflin signing was, it seems like throwaway money. It seems like a guy that can add depth. It's pretty expensive depth, but another guy that could be very valuable to a team that is very questionable when it comes to their starting pitching. But yeah, doesn't make our team better in any way, shape, or form necessarily. There's lots of guys that are potentially on this roster that could be a lot better than Zach Eflin.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. But Met fans, don't worry. It's all good. We are still in the mix for a lot of different things. At least that's what the Mets vice president, assistant general manager, Eduardo, he said this guy's name,
Brizula? Sure, sounds good to me.
I take us through, Justin. What does
right,
Eduardo say?
So this was a quote from him. It says, "We're actively looking to add another outfielder to the mix. We love the versatility our current roster provides, and we're seeking additional players who can bring that same flexibility and depth." Interesting. To Met fans, all right, he's talking to us directly, okay? There's really nothing to worry about. Thank you, Eduardo. I know the offseason has been tough with some familiar names no longer here, and it's natural to feel uncertain with big pieces moving on. But I truly believe we're building a strong competitive team. We got a ton of exciting talent riding through the farm system, quality options available in free agency, and we're going to be very aggressive in trades as well. Rest assured, we're staying super active this winter. Now, this was said on December 29th, so this has now been about
6
a week
days.
ago. Yeah, 6 days ago. Eduardo, I hope we are super active this winter. I am optimistic that we are going to be super active this winter. But, let's dissect this a little bit. He definitely emphasizes, or I'm emphasizing some of the things that I think stand out, in terms of what he stated. The first thing he says is that we're looking to add another outfielder to the mix, right? He doesn't say we're looking to add a top outfielder to the mix. He doesn't say we're looking to add a free agent outfielder to the mix. He just says we're looking to add an outfielder. So that can come through free agency, or I think the more likely scenario is that it's going to come through a trade.
Yeah. So let's kind of take a look at what is still out there in terms of free agents. I'm going to throw this graphic up for everyone to see it. So this is a graphic we've put up before in the past. This graphic kind of outlines all of the free agent options that are available. The easiest one to look at here is that reliever grouping over there, the bottom left, where the Mets have signed Devin Williams and Luke Weaver, and every other name that we listed as the top free agents at the beginning of this offseason are off the board. At some point, we will update this graphic with the new top relievers that are out there. But every top reliever is out there, and maybe we don't even need to update the graphic, because I do think the Mets, if they're adding to this bullpen, it will be low-level pieces.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a couple of guys that are still available. David Robertson, who's not going to sign at the beginning of the year. He signed with Philly last year, right around that June, July mark. He's looking to kind of stay a little bit healthier, right, for the postseason run. You got guys like Evan Phillips that's still available. Michael Kopech, right, is still available. There's a couple of low-level guys that the Mets might sign. Again, they might just go into this year saying, hey, we got some young kids that we're going to be utilizing in our bullpen. Again, we spent enough on our bullpen. But I can see them signing still one more low-level reliever just to reassure or shore up that bullpen.
Yeah, we missed out on Tyler Rogers. Maybe we'll get Taylor Rogers. He's still out there.
He is still out there. That's a good point. So let's take a look at the outfielders, right? Because that is what the assistant VP stated, is that we're looking to add another outfielder to the mix. Obviously, the big names there are Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger, right? What are our temperature on those two guys, Stefan?
Yeah, I think if both of these guys end up in the middle of February and they're crap, we have to sign with somebody. We're not getting that long-term deal that we thought we were going to get. Let's sign a 3-year contract with an opt-out after one. Then I think the Mets will be all in on that. But I do think that it's not going to go there. I think that somebody's going to offer Kyle Tucker a 5+ year deal. The Yankees, I think, are going to offer Cody Bellinger a 5+ year deal, and they're going to take that. They're going to sign with other teams because those teams are willing to give them length at very high average annual values. And I don't think the Mets are in on any of these guys if it's going to be anything beyond a 3-year contract. I think the Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger options to improve our outfield, I love them. I think they make our team a lot better. It's the splash that we've all been waiting for, but I hate to break it to everybody, that splash is not happening, right? It's not going to be these guys.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I every single day, every hour, I'm checking. Is it Kyle Tucker? Is it Kyle Tucker? Um, I'm with you. I can't see it happening. I don't think they're going to pay another outfielder $40 million plus, right? We already have Juan Soto that's making $50 million plus, sitting in right field right now. Can Tucker play left field? I don't know. Can Soto play left field? I know he's playing that for the World Baseball Classic, right? For his team. You know, that doesn't mean that's good. I also don't know if Soto wants to move to left field permanently if you sign a guy like Tucker long term. And so, all of those factors need to be put into it. It's another long term contract, which, when you really think about the Mets right now in terms of long term contracts, they actually have cleared a bunch of those long term contracts off the books at this point, right? There's no longer Nimmo. There is no more Alonso. And so the Mets really just have it's Lindor and it's Soto at this point in terms of long-term money that's committed. I know Simeon has 3 years left, but it seems like 3 years is not a long-term contract in Stearns' eyes because that's his money number that he likes to use. But again, I just don't see them going after Tucker. I don't see them going after. I think they would like them. I just don't think they're going to be able to go above and beyond. And at this point, if you're both of those free agents, the Mets need to do something that is going above and beyond for you to say, I'm going to sign with the New York Mets at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
The next guy down there is Harrison Bader. Can I see the Mets reunion with Harrison Bader? I can. I think he is a good outfielder. Obviously, clearly defensively, he's great. He had a breakout offensive season last year with the Twins and then getting traded over to Philly. Another missed mark for David Stearns during the trade deadline, right? If you plug in Harrison Bader instead of Cedric Mullins in the trade deadline, the Mets make the playoffs, right? Let's be real here. So I could see Harrison Bader possibly being a guy that can, play center field for the Mets. Is that a big splash? It's not. Is he a major league player? He absolutely is. But so in terms of free agencies, do we see anyone outfielder? Because that's what this guy is stating. I don't think so. And if that's the case, it's got to be a trade that the Mets are going to go after.
For sure. Now, are there other options for hitters that are out there that can make this offense better? Yeah, Alex Bregman, Bo Bichette, I think are splashy guys that can make the offensive lineup of the Mets a lot better. They're the next two guys that are listed on our list here as big time free agents. Those are other guys, again, that I think are going to get longer than 5-year deals with whoever they sign with. And I just don't see David Stearns doing it. I don't think he cares about the splash. I don't think he cares about that. I think he cares about contact hitters that put the ball in play. And is Alex Bregman that? For sure. But he's not looking to. I think he wants to see what this roster can be 3 years from now, and continue to build with the youth, right? I think they strongly believe in this minor league system, having a lot of guys that are going to contribute at the major league level, and saying we believe in those guys. And 3 years from now, we're going to show you that those guys are elite players, and so we're not going to go spend big time money on Bo Bichette.
Yeah, it's so interesting because when you look at the Mets minor league system, they have a depth of infielders, right? Like that is where our strength is in terms of my minor leaguers who are like ready to come up to the major leagues. And the two major acquisitions that the Mets have made so far this offseason have been infielders in Polanco and Simeon. And so it's fascinating to hear David Stearns say that we want to leave open or room for our young players to come up and to prove something. And then the two major acquisitions that we made are both infielders that, like at the beginning of this offseason, we said they don't really have a role on this team. What we don't have in the minor leagues is outfield depth, right? I know Carson Bench is a guy that David Stearns has mentioned, has talked about. He is clearly going to have an opportunity to make the opening day roster out of spring training. But again, he's a kid who played like 30 games in AAA last year, and wasn't that successful. So we don't have any idea of what he's going to be and if he actually can contribute to the major league team. So if we're leaving room open for these young kids, we have Juan Soto as our outfielder, which that's a great starting point. And then that's it. Tyrone Taylor is not a starting center fielder. He is a fourth
Yes, he is. He's
outfielder
an
at
elite
best.
defensive center fielder, Justin.
I hear you, man. God, Tyrone Taylor and David Stearns, they I don't know what's going on. maybe Taylor's like the godfather of his like children or something like that. Like he's got that position on lockdown or for something, right? I don't know if he did some voodoo magic on Stearns at some point. But man, Taylor he's got some type of spell on Stearns. I don't know what's going on with that. But so again, if it's not going to be a free agency, maybe a guy we just mentioned before, like Bader. Luis Robert has been a guy that has been linked to the Mets since the trade deadline. I know Jaron Duran is a guy that you really like and coveted from Boston. And, and it could be someone we're not even thinking about, right? I don't know. I know Austin Hayes is a guy that was linked to the Mets in the offseason, but there's no way Austin Hayes, he can hit lefties. He is not someone that you can plug in on a daily basis that is going to be your starting outfielder. And so if that's the guy you're giving us,
It's not a guy you want,
but
but he is a guy that has been a starter, right? For teams in the past. Is he better than Tyrone Taylor? I think he is, right? Like I can see those types of moves being made. I just don't think they move the needle for any of us. I think all of us are like that's the move. That's the guy that makes our team better. And maybe David Stearns will think so, but I don't think Mets fans think so.
Yeah.
And then the last side of this is that starting pitcher side. Framber Valdez is still out there. Ranger Suarez, Zach Gallen, and then after Zach Gallen, it kind of really falls off. We have Zach Littell, Nick Martinez, Patrick Corbin, Eric Fetty, are guys that are still out there. Do you see, Justin, the Mets adding any of these starters to make our rotation better?
Again, Valdez has been someone that's been linked to the Mets now since the winter meetings, right? They met with him. He did a whole presentation on how he's a good guy, right? Apparently, there's a big concern right now with him throwing a fastball when the catcher called for an off speed, hit the guy right in the chest. Valdez is 32 years old, though. And if you're telling me that you can get Valdez on a 3-year contract, that number 3 we all love, I'm sure I'll take Valdez. Ranger Suarez, I know that he's had a couple of good years with Philly. He's just not someone that moves the needle for me. And if we are saying that we're looking for a top-end front-of-the-line starter, I personally don't think Ranger Suarez does it for me. I think Valdez is a really solid number 2. I know some people are going to argue he's a number 1. I think he's a really solid number 2 and someone that would definitely make this rotation better. And so if you're asking me right now, out of the free agency, like who's available, who do I want? It's definitely Valdez. I think that's pretty clear. And in terms of anyone else, no. I think it's got to, again, be another trade that the Mets were going to be exploring for them to kind of improve their starting rotation if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be any of these guys, to be 100% honest with you. I think the free agent market for the Mets is pretty much closed to the Mets in terms of big names that are going to be out there for the Mets to go get. Maybe they'll add some small name guys, some minor league invites to spring training from the free agency, but I really don't think the Mets are dabbling here anymore because I do think the guys that are out there are looking for those longer term deals. Would you want Valdez on a 5-year contract?
No way.
So, and I think David Stearns feels the same way. And if we feel that way, there's no way that David Stearns is going to go give Framber Valdez 5 years. He doesn't give anybody 5 years. So I think that's what it's going to take to get him. I think that's the only guy, like you said, that's out there that makes this rotation visibly better. Ranger Suarez, I think, could also make this rotation better.
He can.
Because I think he's a legit 3, right? Like I think you plug him in there and you say like that guy, middle of the rotation pitcher for me, makes my starting rotation clearly better, right? Like you could look at it on paper and say you're better because of it.
Yeah, but like, let me ask you a question. If Ranger Suarez is starting game 1 of a playoff game, are you like, oh, yeah, we got the advantage here?
No, absolutely not.
So like, if that's the case, that's not who I'm looking for at this point.
Right. And I think he's going to command big money. And David Stearns, I think, thinks he knows better than everybody else. And if we are agreeing with him, then I just don't see it happening. It's not, the Mets are not going to improve when it comes to free agency anymore. I'll eat my words. I'll eat crow if he ends up signing any of these guys. I'll be the first person to come on here and apologize for saying that he was not interested in any of these guys to begin with. And like I said, I'm saying not interested on long-term contracts. If any of these guys get to mid-February, we are starting up spring training, pitchers and catchers report, and they're not signed, maybe they open up the door to a team like the Mets who want them on a short year, high AAV deal. But for right now, I think that door is closed, and the Mets need to turn to free agency where they can, essentially say, like, we're going to force a player to come play for us, because maybe there is an issue with what's happening in the clubhouse for the Mets. Like, maybe free agents are looking at what's going on with the Mets and saying, I don't want to play there. Right? They
Are you
convinced
trying to?
Juan Soto to come there, but now that these moves have been made with Nimmo and Pete and Diaz moving on and everything being changed and like this whole blowing up of the core has taken place, there's now been so much stuff that's come out about this Mets clubhouse. The latest being Paul Blackburn.
Yeah. So Paul Blackburn had an interview with the Post. Again, Paul Blackburn played for the Mets now for 2 years. He then was designated for assignment. He then he signed with the Yankees. He then re-signed with the Yankees. He clearly had a better experience with the Yankees in 2025. But here are the comments. This is the clubhouse in 2024 compared to last year was definitely different. I wouldn't say guys were in there throwing blows or anything like that, but it definitely had a different vibe. When it came over in 2024, JD Martinez and Jose Iglesias had a big impact on everyone in there, and everyone vibed together. Those were the guys that helped the clubhouse mesh, and last year, those guys weren't there. He then went on further and talked about how, like, in the Yankees clubhouse, guys were pulling for each other. He felt like camaraderie. He felt like guys were, like, really, like, trying to, like, make others successful.
He said
So it's
something like
definitely,
tugging on the same rope, right? Essentially, they're
he
not
can
all.
tug on whatever. Yeah, he can tug on whatever rope he wants, Paul Blackburn. All right, bro. Like, dude, who the hell are you? Right? You're lucky you even are a major league pitcher at this point. Tugging on, I'll tug you, bro.
You want to tug him, bro?
Yeah, I want to tug him out of friggin' Yankee Stadium. That guy stinks. Right?
All right.
Actually, tug him into the game. Right? I'm totally fine with that. Paul Blackburn. Right? Bashing the Mets. Like, oh, let me ask you a question. Like, why? What is the purpose of Paul Blackburn going out there making these comments? Like, even if that is true, why? Why slander the Mets at this point? Like, what is it that they did to you? Like, you clearly hated Stearns and
Yeah, they
Mendoza so
designated
much.
for assignment. They said he was sucky, and they kicked him out.
Dude, he was. He's the reason why the Mets sucked in 2025, right?
Yeah, he's the reason.
Clay Holmes got pulled from that game, and who came in and now for the rest of the season, from that June point on, the Mets were the worst team in baseball. It was Paul Blackburn's fault, clearly.
Oh, damn, Paul Blackburn. All right. So
Yeah,
maybe there's something going on with the clubhouse, and it doesn't matter anymore. The clubhouse is different again, right? It's a completely different clubhouse. And like I said, I don't think the free agents are an option. So what is the plan here now? Let's talk about our updated Mets GM plans. What do you think the Mets are going to do, Justin? How do you think the Mets are going to proceed from now until the start of the season?
Yeah, listen, I know that fans are frustrated. We're frustrated, right? That nothing has really happened. But can I just say that all of baseball is like waiting for whatever reasons. I don't know if it's because of the CBA potentially expiring next year and there being a lockout, but it's been a really slow developing market. In terms of the top free agents, you still have the top guy that's still available in terms of Tucker. You have Tucker, Cody, Valdez, Bregman, Bo, right? Ranger Suarez, they're all still out there. And so I know the Mets have missed on a couple of these guys that, hey, we said maybe could have improved our team, but it's pretty clear that all of baseball is waiting for whatever the reasons are, whether it's they are boycotting Scott Boras and saying, dude, we're sick of dealing with you and your nonsense and those puns that you do, or they are nervous with that CBA coming up and there potential to be a lockout. I'm not sure. But in terms of what the Mets need to still do, it's clear they're going to get an outfielder. I am not sure if that's going to be in the free agency. I really believe that it's going to be through a trade. For me right now, I think that the most logical is Luis Robert Jr., right, from the White Sox. I think that they want to move that contract. I think that clearly Stearns has an interest in him. When there's smoke, there's fire type of situation, and they were linked to him at the trade deadline. I think the White Sox need to come down from their asking price. In terms of the money, don't tell me that you don't want to take on the $20 million for Luis Robert on a 1-year deal. Because again, it is technically a 2-year deal. It's a club option that they can opt into for next year. So if he has a great year, you opt into it. If he has a bad year, it's a 1-year deal and you get rid of him, right, for the following years. In terms of that, I don't think they should be giving up major prospects, but I think that's a guy that
What do
can
you think it's gonna
improve
take?
this. Like, I can see them, hey, we're trying to compete, the White Sox. I can see a guy like Vientos being someone that that the White Sox look at. I know Luis Angel Acuna has been a guy that has been linked in terms of trades for Luis Robert. And if you're asking me, would I trade Acuna for Luis Robert straight up? For sure. Do I think the White Sox are going to do that? No, I think it's going to take a little bit more. If you ask me Vientos for Luis Robert Jr. straight up, do I do that? Probably. I know that that's a popular opinion, but it's more of a need situation. I'm not saying that I don't believe in Vientos having a bounce back. I'm saying that the Mets need an outfielder at this point. And so if you're asking me what our needs are, if you're telling me that I can get an outfielder that's comparable, I think, to Vientos in terms of offensive production, I think that that's possible. And so that is something that I would definitely be willing to explore. But, in terms of like where they go from there, I don't see them going Tucker. There's no way they're giving him a 10-year contract. I don't even think they're going to give him an 8-year contract. And so I don't think they're going to be in on Tucker. We just talked about Cody. Cody's going back to the Yankees, right? If you're asking me right now where he's going to go, it makes too much sense. He had one of the best years that he's had in now the last 5 with the Yankees. He fits that team, that mold of what he's looking to do. He was clearly comfortable in Yankee Stadium. He's a lefty with that short porch in right field that obviously fits his swing really well. He had 29 home runs last year. He obviously got along with Judge, right? I don't think anyone doesn't get along with Judge. So I don't think Bellinger is going to go to them, even though that they really like him. I don't think that Bellinger is going to be a guy that they can get. So if you're asking me right now, I think Luis Robert is our answer for the free agency, for the outfield in terms of a trade. In terms of starting pitching, we mentioned it before. I don't think that they are going to be going after really any of those top free agents. There was a couple of guys on the trade deadline or the trade block that were mentioned prior to. You have guys like Peralta, Sandy Alcantara, Edward Cabrera, Mackenzie Gore, which I think is really intriguing, right, in terms of like who could be potentially available. I don't love giving or trading for Peralta on a 1-year deal if you have to give up major prospects. I'm also a little nervous with Peralta. I was kind of digging in and looking at his stats a little bit. He's not a guy that he pitches a lot of innings, right? He pitched like 160, 170 innings the last couple of years, but he usually doesn't go deep into games, right? When you're looking at him, he's only pitched 6 innings, I think like 13 times last year, right? Or got through 6 innings 13 times last year. And so if you're asking me right now, is Freddie Peralta someone that the Mets are going to be targeting? I don't know. One of the big things last year was that the Mets starting pitching could not get through at least 6 innings, or they couldn't get them length, and they taxed the bullpen. Is Freddie Peralta another guy that's going to do the same thing? It's possible. He had 17 wins last year for the Brewers, who the Brewers had one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. And so, like, when you're looking at Freddie Peralta's numbers, he's a guy that throws 5 innings, 5 1/3, 5 2/3. He may be pitching into the 6th inning, but most of the time he doesn't complete those 6 innings. And so I don't even necessarily know if that's a guy that Stearns is going to want. He's going to target if you have to give up major prospects. So if you ask me right now, like, who do I think the Mets are going to get in terms of starting pitcher? Maybe Valdez. And if it's not Valdez, they need to go out and they need to then make a trade, right? Personally, I think a guy like Mackenzie Gore is someone that is really fascinating. I don't know if the Nationals will trade in division. I think that's possible, but I think that's a guy that I would definitely be targeting if I was David Stearns in the Mets.
I hear you. So for me, I think I've been saying this now in our group chat for a little bit. Think that David Stearns truly believes in the roster that he's currently constructed. And I do think that there's a possibility to upgrade. I do think it's going to come through trade, like you said. I don't think free agency is an option for David Stearns, but I also think that David Stearns is at a point where he's like, I'm good with this. I'm good with where I'm at right now. I think I can put a competitive team that's on the field that's very, very different than the team that's been on the field in the past. It'll be a different brand of baseball for Mets fans, but I think it's going to be a competitive brand of baseball that we put out there. And if I can add to it, great. But maybe I need to wait until the trade deadline to see if we're really a playoff contender, make the push there, roll with the guys that we have right now, especially when it comes to this starting rotation. Last year's starting rotation on opening day was Clay Holmes, Tyler McGill, Griffin Canning, David Peterson, and Kodai Senga. That was the starting rotation that we went with. And obviously Sean Manaea was on the injured list. Clearly he should be in there instead of Tyler McGill, who probably should have been in the bullpen. So that was going to be the rotation that the Mets rolled with. Right now, the Mets rotation.
Wait, before that is crazy. The Mets were like said to be one of the top like teams in all of baseball. And you were trying to roll with Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, Griffin Canning, David Peterson, and Kodai Senga. Like that That's fascinating, right? When you really think about that, right? I'm kind of with you on that. That's
I think
interesting to look at.
that everybody gave them 2024 credit in 2025 and said David Stearns is the smartest guy in the room. He can put together this amazing starting rotation. Like the 2024 rotation, he got crapped on before that season started, turned out to be pretty solid for them, and they're like, all right, he'll hit again. He'll hit on the Griffin Cannings of the world, and Clay Holmes will be a legit starting pitcher. And those two guys he didn't necessarily miss on. Right? Griffin Canning, when he was on this team, was legitimately pretty darn good, especially much better than we all thought he was going to be. I think we sat, talking constantly to each other about, I can't believe the Mets are rolling with Griffin Canning. And then we ate our words once the season started. He did start coming back to earth before he got injured. And if the season continued, he probably would have done exactly what David Peterson did, which is pretty much die at the end of the season. Clay Holmes, I think, people said David Stearns must be right. He knows talent when he sees it, and he's probably going to be able to convert Clay Holmes, which I do think he successfully was able to do. And so that was the rotation on opening day. The rotation on, if we rolled with everything right now and no one gets injured, someone probably getting injured. That's how these things work. But entering spring training, our starting rotation would be David Peterson, who we're hoping can last a full season. And if he does, pretty damn good pitcher. Kodai Senga, who got injured and was legitimately probably ace-like caliber pitcher, except he can't pitch long into games and he can't throw more than every 5 days.
Wait, no more Pete Alonso throw the ball at first base out, right? So
yeah. So he won't get injured.
We
we'll know that Pete Alonso won't be there to injure him, and he'll have a solid season. Sean Manaea, again, not starting the season on the injured list and not able to recover. And then you've got McLean, Sproat, Tong, and Scott, right? 4 pretty much rookies that we are able to put out there in spring training and say, we have 3 spots. But if you are saying McLean is a lock, which I think we all believe he is, Sproat, Tong, and Scott are out there. There's 2 spots for you guys to compete for in a 6-man rotation. The best of the 2 of you guys are going to start. The other guy, probably Tong, will end up in AAA. We'll see what ends up happening. But I think if the Mets are looking at this and saying, we think that the starting rotation right now, and I'll put them up side by side for us to take a look at here, these 2 rotations, if we can roll with McLean in our starting rotation for the entire season and some combination of Sproat, Tong, and Scott at the back end of that rotation, guys that we believe can be number 2 pitchers, if not better than that, then maybe this rotation is already better than last year's rotation. Maybe we have upgraded in terms of run prevention when we're looking at these guys because we believe McLean is a workhorse. We believe that Sproat is a guy that can go out there and consistently throw 6+ innings. And so I might be in that camp at this point because I don't think any of those starting pitchers that are out there are worth the investment. I'd rather spend the money elsewhere. And I think David Stearns feels the same way. I think he feels like I spoke about run prevention. I've done that by improving our up the middle defense. And I am going to move on with this starting rotation, which I believe is better than last year. So that might be an unpopular opinion, but I honestly do believe that this rotation is better than last year's rotation. I think there's an upgrade here because you have, if only for this one thing to hit, you have Nolan McLean as a starting pitcher on your team for the entire season. And maybe that's not fair to put all that pressure on him. I'm listing him as the number 4 on this roster for a reason. He's clearly the number 1, right? But I'll list him on paper lower than that to try to take some of that pressure off. But this guy's legit. I think we all see that this guy's legit, and I think David Stearns is ready to roll.
Yeah, I mean, McLean right now going into the season has the best odds to win Rookie of the Year, right? Like he is at plus 350 right now. He's still technically a rookie. I think he got it by like 1 inning last year, which again, I don't actually think the Mets manipulated that. Like at the end of the season, I think they manipulated that during the season to make sure that he is still on his rookie status. But yeah, I kind of with you. And when you outline it like that, it makes a lot of sense, especially looking at last year's rotation and saying like, is this a championship caliber rotation? Clearly no. But when you're looking at a guy like McLean, who he's not a kid either, right? He is 25, 20. Is he going into his 26-year-old season? I think he is. So he's not a kid, right? He is. Yeah, like he's not like a 22-year-old like Tong who like looks like a baby. He's
20. He's 24 right now. He's going to be 25.
So he's going into his 25-year season, right? Like so, like he's not that young of a kid. Where McLean, like why he wasn't brought up earlier is because he was a 2-way player, and I think he started his like pitching a little bit later, which is why now he is a little bit older. Has nothing to do with his stuff. I think we saw last year him potentially being one of the best pitchers in baseball. Clearly, he was asked to go and pitch for the World Baseball Classic. Guys like Scooble, guys like Skeens, and then you got McLean. It's like, whoa, like what the heck? So yeah, that's exciting. And yeah, you're not wrong. It's just like last year was the biggest issue we had was starting pitching. And you are now going into this season again with just a tremendous question mark and relying on kids and rookies to say, this is our solution to it.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. But if any of the things I said hit, if David Peterson is able to put together a full season, if Kodai Senga doesn't get hurt, if Sean Manaea can bounce back, I'm not saying all three of those things need to happen. If all three of those things happen, Sean Manaea was the best pitcher on this team in 2024. Right? I think we could all agree to that. If that can happen again, if any of those things can happen again, this team's starting rotation is a lot better. And then offensively, I'll round it out by saying you tease this one out for us as well. Jarren Duran is the guy here, and I don't know that Boston's willing to trade him. I think that's the holdup here. But there's been rumors that Boston is willing to trade him. I think the Mets need to go pay what it takes to get him, and I'm not. For me, that's not with any of those starting pitchers that I just listed. I think the Mets need all of those starting pitchers, but you can trade a guy like Jet Williams with a package of other players to get Jarren Duran, who is an answer. He is an answer in center field. He is an answer that you can put in the middle of this lineup and say, my offense is now better. He's a guy that I think that David Stearns would say, yes, this is the type of player that I'm interested in having, right? He's not necessarily a home run hitter. He's a contact hitter. He's not going to bat 350. But he's a guy that can bat 260 plus. He's a guy that is going to put the bat on the ball. He's going to drive in significant runs. He's going to steal bases. I think he's the type of player that brings versatility in the outfield so you can move guys around. I think he's the answer here. And I've been saying that for a while. I wanted him as part of my plans with all of these other grand things. But I think the Mets can go into this season if they just add one more legit bat to that outfield and say, like, we are good now. We are ready to go. I believe David Stearns thinks he's already ready to go. I don't think he thinks in his head he needs to make the big splash, but I think you'll sell it to Met fans a lot better if you can bring in a guy like Jarren Duran and say, now our offense is an offense I believe in. It's an offense that I believe is the type of offense you need to be a playoff team.
Yeah, I want to believe Steve Cohen when he came out and said that I think the payroll is going to be pretty similar to what it was last year. And like, he's someone that obviously spends money. He's someone that he's been pretty truthful to the Met fans, right? When he says something, it usually comes to fruition. And so if you're telling me that you're going to go into this season with this rotation that you currently just constituted, which I'm with you, it could work out. That means that you have $30+ million that you can spend on an offensive player. And so if that is the case, you still have those big free agents that are available that you can go into and you can improve the offense. So if you're telling me that you're not going to get a starting pitcher, which when you outline it that way, it makes sense, right? That we technically have improved our starting pitching because we are going to have a full year of McLean. We're going to have a full year of Sproat and whatever year of Tong when he starts in the minors and then potentially gets brought up. Then you're telling me that you have $30+ million that you're able to spend on a offensive player that you can then go sign a big free agent guy like a Tucker or like a Bregman or like a Bo Bichette even, right? That could play all around the diamond. And so, if that is the case there, right, don't go into the season with a payroll at lower than what you had last year when you weren't even a playoff team last year, right? You can't sell Met fans and tell them that we improved our roster when you just reduced your payroll by $40+ million a year.
I just don't think he cares that he needs to sell anything to Met fans. I think he needs to believe to himself that this is the team that is able to compete, and then Met fans will be happy when we watch the product on the field and it's successful, right? We will be calling for his head when we watch the product on the field and it's not successful. But if he believes that this team is ready to go and they actually go out there and they are a playoff team and it's for $40 million less than it was last year, I think we'll all be looking at that and saying, all right, successful season.
Yeah, he might. But does Steve Cohen believe that, right? Because again, you have a guy he's involved. I'm not saying that he is telling David Stearns what he needs to do, but I have heard Cohen numerous times in previous seasons saying, we believe we're missing like an offensive piece. He's went to his GMs, right? Whether it was Billy Epler, right? Whether it was David Stearns, and said, hey, I think that we need one more offensive piece. And he has told them that he wants them to explore and go after X amount of guy or whatever guy to improve it. And he's not saying that it has to be this guy specifically, but he might go to Stearns and say, yo, we're missing an outfielder, clearly, right? Like we should not be going into our season with Tyrone Taylor, Carson Benj, and Juan Soto in our outfield only, right? That does not create depth for us. That creates a huge issue for us potentially, and we're missing something here. And so I believe that Steve Cohen, if this is the product that David Stearns is trying to sell to him, is going to go to him and say, we're missing something. And so if that is the case, I do believe that they're going to improve the offense in some capacity. Again, I don't know what that means. It could be an Austin Hayes, right? It can be a lower level guy, but they are going to get an outfielder in some way. There is no way that you're rolling. They don't have any depth there, right? Like it's not like I'm missing out on guys and I'm like, hey, you know, this guy can plug in. Like Marte's not on this team, Winker is not on this team, right? Those are all outfielders last year that are no longer on this team. It doesn't make any sense. So they are clearly going to get an outfielder. Again, I don't know what that consists of or where that's going to go, but it's going to be an outfielder in some way.
Yeah, well, where I think we're leaving you Met fans off with right now is the Mets are still a question mark here. We all have different opinions on what David Stearns is trying to do here. We'll see what it ends up being. Hopefully there's news coming soon. As of right now, I would say this holiday season, I don't know if we enjoyed the gifts under the tree this year.
The best thing right now is what I'm wearing from the holiday season, right? That we got this gear. So for our listeners, if you're looking for it, we got a little patch over here, right? It says "Meet the Met Fans." Okay, we got these lovely gentlemen on it. The back's got a big blown up logo on it. So if you're listening, right, and you're not viewing this, okay, it's a nice little crew neck, right? Stefan mentioned he's got a little quarter zip Under Armour on that's coming in. He'll debut in the next pod. So if again are interested, we have no apparel, we have no stock, we have no anything. But
We
hey,
could call a guy. We can make a couple.
Yeah. If you think it's cool, let us know.
For sure. All right, Met fans, that's going to bring us to the end of this pod. Stay tuned for the next episode. If you are interested in joining us on this podcast to co-host an episode with us, reach out to us. We're very happy to bring Met fans on to tell their stories of how they became Met fans. So reach out to us either at our email address, meetthemetsfans25@gmail.com, or DM us on any of our social media accounts.
All right, guys. Have a great day. Let's go, Mets. Hopefully we're re-recording this episode because they signed Kyle Tucker. Let's go.
Probably not. Let's go, Mets.
Meet the Mets fans, voices rising up from the stands. Hear their cheers, hear their groans, feel their highs, feel their moans. Stories untold now on the mic. Mets fans unite.